Hello, Jacksonites. Long time no see. After how long has it been? One second. Since January 3rd, and it's February 21st now. Yeah, it's been a little while. Obviously, I never got around to doing more videos at my old place because shit just got real and shit just got busy. But finally, the dust has settled. I now am moved into my new temporary, but for me, this is my new home for the time being. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't know how many videos I'll be able to get out while I'm here. But yeah, for the time being, this is the new setup. And, I think it looks pretty nice. Um, I'm in the middle of my new living room, and this is my new movie slash nerd corner slash my YouTube studio. I'm actually right next to my TV. So the setup is somewhat similar to my old living room where I used to do videos. But just new location, nicer apartment, slightly nicer complex, and a new shades to go along with it, or a new pair of shades to go along with it to celebrate the occasion. I like these. And my hair is now even longer than it was the last time. I've never ever had my hair this long. I can actually sort of kind of put it into a little bun, much to Meadows' hilarity. um, and Texas Guy Movie Reviews is here. Hello. So, to celebrate my return to the realm of YouTube, I figure I don't want to exactly like start with an absolute big bang and just show all my cards right off the bat. I figure because it has been a little while, I want to kind of ease back into the groove of doing videos. But I've actually had this video idea for the last 3 or 4 years, and funny enough, I actually conceptualized this video idea back when me and Meadow first moved into our old place back in um, May of 2020. I came up with this idea around July, maybe early August or so. So obviously, I like to take my sweet ass time in getting stuff that I uh, come up with done. But you know what? Better late than never. But also, one of the questions that I think Shawnee Boy asked me in my recent Q&A video threw gasoline even further onto this idea. But this idea was especially conceptualized when simply me and Meadow were talking about this idea back in, I think, late November or early January. Um, or not January, December. But so today, just to keep things simple and keep things light and fun, today I will be listing off my top 20 favorite animated films. So when I was young, my parents and family were kind of a bunch of squares. Not throwing shade on my family, like I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my grandparents and all that, but growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch, Michael Myers movies or Freddy movies or Jason movies or zombie movies or anything that I'm interested in nowadays. I generally stick to horror, action, martial arts, sci-fi, monster movies, so on and so forth. Pretty adult stuff. And I've been watching that since behind my family's back since I was like 10 or 12. Like I've been watching let's see. I've been watching Aliens, for example. That's a very R-rated movie. I've been watching that since I was like 7 or 8 years old. So, and I've been watching Terminator and Terminator 2 since I was very, very young. So, regardless of what my family would say, I was watching R-rated movies. However, still, as a young one, there were a gargantuan plethora of animated films from Pixar, Warner Brothers, um, Disney, Don Bluth, DreamWorks, Blue Sky Entertainment, or was it Blue Sky Entertainment? Yeah, I think so, or maybe Blue Sky Industries. I don't quite remember. Blue Sky. Sadly, that studio no longer exists because of Disney. But so yeah, growing up, I did watch a lot of animated movies. Partially by choice, but also partially because there was nothing else that I could watch as a kid, because I didn't give a shit about reading very much when I was very young. I didn't like sports. I didn't like watching the news, unlike my dad. So I would just watch animated movies or kids' movies. And, as an adult, like I said, I generally stick to adult films, not porn, shut up, but movies made for mature audiences. I like R-rated content. I like stuff that's made for an older audience. So shut up. I don't watch adult films. Fuck you. um but still to this day, the realm of animation I do think is a very important, integral, and not really underrated necessarily, and I wouldn't even say overlooked, but it's a no, not even close. So that's actually something I'll talk about in just a minute. Um, yeah, the realm of animation, I do think that it's a realm of filmmaking that is kind of stuck in a box, for lack of a better term. Like a lot of people have this mindset. Oh, thank you, my Venom shirt. I've had this for a while actually. But a lot of people like to think that if a film is animated, oh, it's just for kids. Kids like animated movies. Well, granted, yes, I do think one of the main purposes of animated movies is for children to watch because of the fast moving objects and bright, flashy colors. They can very quickly and very easily grab the attention of a small child, as I know from firsthand experience with my own son and myself too. That was a reason why I liked animated movies. But I do think that the realm of animation is something that should be universally compatible. Like we've seen, or we should see more like animated sci-fi films or animated martial arts movies or animated monster movie. Well, yes and no for that one. Or like especially I think there should be more animated horror movies. There are animated horror films, and all those genres that I listed off, there are examples of animated like superhero movies, martial arts movies, so on and so forth. And I do have examples like that on my list. But yeah, generally it seems like an animated movie, a lot of people just think, oh, that must be a kid's movie. Which I think I get why, but I think it is kind of a shame. But I also do think that just because a movie is a children's movie, that doesn't mean that adults can't watch it and not enjoy it. There's tons of animated kids movies from Disney, Don Bluth, DreamWorks that like I myself watched as a child and I still enjoy them as an adult. There's even films, they're not on my list, but there's even animated movies dating back to the 1930s that I've seen that I still enjoy as a oh, thank you. That I still enjoy as an adult. Like namely it's just Disney. I can't think of any um like Warner Brothers animated films from the 30s. I don't even think that was a thing. Um, but still, the main catalyst for doing this video was Meadow, of course. Meadow is a huge fan of animated movies and shows. Like she grew up watching a lot of um, she grew up watching a lot of cartoons like Powerpuff Girls, Care Bears, My Little Pony, and tons of Disney movies from regular Disney and Pixar. She did not care if it was fun and cute and silly and quirky. She was watching it over and over and over again. So yeah, she's the main catalyst for doing this video, but there are some others. Actually, one person that gave me a lot of inspiration for this video too was actually Shawnee Boy with his ungodly, unfathomable task of watching every single animated film that Disney has ever produced in its entire 100 years of history or something along those lines. But I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I couldn't watch that many movies from one studio. God damn. No, thank you, smank you. But it did get me thinking, like, how many Disney movies have I seen? And how many do I consider to be some of my favorites? And a minor spoiler, that's going to be about 10, technically, but it's not half of the list. Because spoilers for this top 20 list, I do have some ties, and I'll explain why as I go along. But for the most part, the general reason is I simply can't choose. These are all movies that I grew up with and still enjoy as an adult. Like these are the top of the top for me. As I've said many times with my list videos, if I was to go live on an island, these are the 20 animated movies that I would take with me to watch for the rest of my life. 163 movies up to 2021. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't think I could do that in such a short amount of time, one after the other. That just looks and sounds like an act of insanity, if you ask me. But anyway, yeah, so not really in any particular order, although like the top 4 or 5 or so are the ones that I have like the least amount of feelings for. Um, but or they're just the ones that I like the least sort of my top 20. But these are my 20 favorite animated movies across all different kinds of genres and studios. I have Disney, I have Pixar, I have DreamWorks, I have animated superhero films. I have one animated horror film. I have some Warner Brothers. I have some sci-fi on here. Yeah, I have a large variety of animated movies on this. Oh, well, I mean, that's the only way you really can do a massive binge task like that was doing it all from home. So, without further ado, let us crack open the first sponsor and let us dive into my top 20 favorite animated movies. Ah, it's good to be back. And apologies if I come off a little rusty, but so can't do the shades no more. And I have a nice little side table of 2 giant pop Funkos of the Thing and Superman. Fantastic Four is the Thing. Alrighty, so coming in at number 20 is The Emperor's New Groove. This is a Disney movie. Um, Now, in many ways, The Emperor's New Groove can be seen as like kind of not really bare bones, but it's kind of just a generic baseline animated Disney movie. Um, and in many ways, yeah, that is true. It kind of came out during a busy time. Like I think when did Emperor's New Groove come out? Oh, it's 2000. Okay, so it came out during a yeah, pretty busy time. Like hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it was overshadowed by another Disney film, Disney's Dinosaur. And fun fact, it actually was a box office bomb, costing $100 million to make, and it made only $169.7 million in its entire box office run. But it did find larger success when it was released on home video and became the best selling VHS tape of 2001. And it has garnered a cult following among fans. And it was followed by a terrible direct to video spin off sequel, Kronk's New Groove, and an animated television series, The Emperor's New School, that aired on the Disney Channel. And by the way, I'm not really going to be adding any TV shows to this list, partially because most animated Disney like TV shows tended to be quite awful, and I'm not really going to have any honorable mentions on this list. Although I will say, The Lion King 2 is probably the biggest honorable mention. But the only where that or the only reason I don't have this on the actual list is because it's a Disney sequel and it's too short. But anyways, yeah, Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, like what Shawnee Boy here is saying. It's a very funny flick. Um, Emperor Kuzco himself is kind of an unlikable, snobby little bastard, but he also is really quotable and quite funny. So you kind of can't help but like him, even though he is a nasty little bastard. And John Goodman does a really good job as Pacha. He's very likable. He's very wholesome. He's very sweet and reasonable. But he's also quite funny and quite quotable. And I grew up with Monsters Inc. And I would have put that on this list too, had it not been for the fact that my son has ruined that movie for me. Um, so I recognize John Goodman more as Pacha than I do recognize him as Sully from Monsters Inc. and Monsters University. Although John Goodman is still really good as Sully. And I also have to agree with Shawnee Boy that I don't think they are. What did he say? Oh, I don't think Kronk is the best character in this movie, but Kronk and Yzma are a really good villain duo. Well, Kronk's not really much of a villain. He's just a dumb, bumbling buttfuck. But Yzma is also quite a good Disney villain. She's just such a fucking crazy, selfish, narcissistic, psychopathic bitch, but she's really funny and very enjoyable to watch, especially watching her just get fucked the fuck off this entire movie, getting flopped in the face with mud and getting attacked by a swarm of bugs in the middle of the jungle, get turned into a cat, get what the hell happens else happens to her? Has to gag at the sight of a giant pill bug being split open. um Yeah, not much to say about Emperor's New Groove. Like, yeah, it is kind of a generic Disney movie, but yeah, I watched it a lot when I was a kid, and I still think it holds up quite well. It also does have beautiful animation. It shows that it had $100 million budget, which, god damn, really? even back then. And this movie's only an hour and 18 minutes. But whatever. Great voice acting, great animation, really good music, really good songs. Emperor's New Groove is just a fun flick. Let's see. Number 19 is the only anime film that I have on this list. Tom Jones. Who's Tom Jones? Oh, the theme song guy. um, I mean, sure, I guess. But yeah, number 19 is the only anime film on this list and is the only Studio Ghibli movie that is on this list. Full disclaimer. I know that a lot of people really like Studio Ghibli movies, and a lot of people that was funny, yeah. Wrong lever! Why do we even have that lever? Get out of my way! The facial expressions on Yzma are quite hilarious sometimes. He's still alive! Kronk! He can't come back. You think? You and I are going out to find him, and if he talks, we are through. Underrated Disney villain. Yeah, so I know a lot of people really like Studio Ghibli movies, and a lot of people really like Hayao Miyazaki films. He is a good filmmaker, and most of his movies that I have seen are well made. They just don't click with me nearly as much as others. And I only grew up with two Studio Ghibli movies, as I learned later in life. But this is the one Studio Ghibli movie that I would definitely say is one of my favorites. And it's one that most people probably would not expect. My number 19 is Kiki's Delivery Service. Um, I have seen My Neighbor Totoro. I started Princess Mononoke, but I tapped out after 20 minutes. I know that'll piss off a lot of people. I've seen Howl's Moving Castle. Didn't much care for it. I've seen Ponyo, which I also really liked. I have seen Spirited Away. It is a good movie, but at the same time, I do think Spirited Away is hellaciously overrated. And of course, I have seen Kiki's Delivery Service. And of all of them that I've seen, it's just the one that clicks with me the most. It's a very cute, very sweet, very low stakes, very just heartfelt, wholesome, feel good movie. Like if you just want to watch something that is very lighthearted, that is just very sweet, something that'll put a smile on your face and warm the heart, as I already said. Kiki's Delivery Service is the best of all the Miyazaki movies. It doesn't have people being turned into pigs in a very somewhat disturbing scene, especially when I was a kid. Doesn't have bawling children left and right. Um, it doesn't have a mom possibly dying of cancer. It doesn't have a nonsensical, extremely difficult to follow plot like Howl's Moving Castle has. It's just a very simple coming of age story about a girl trying to find her place in the world and trying to make money as she goes along with it. I haven't seen Whisper of the Heart. There's some other Studio Ghibli movies that, like Meadow's a big fan of Studio Ghibli, and then there's some that are out there that she wants to see that she still hasn't seen. Like I think Castle in the Sky is the number one on her list. But not much to say because Kiki's Delivery Service is a very, very simple film. That's not such a bad thing. It has really good animation. It's very Hayao Miyazaki and very Studio Ghibli. Um, it's got a solid voice cast. Gigi the cat is adorable, and of all the pet sidekicks for um, Studio Ghibli movies, he's my favorite. He's really funny. Well, pardon me, Miss Snooty Pants. Your broom is very nice, but let's just use your mother's. He's funny, yeah. Yeah, not much else to say. Kiki's Delivery Service is just a very cute film, and it's some for some reason it's one that I always watch around Christmas time. Uh, Coming in at number 18, I think this is the oldest movie on this list. The Adventures of Robin Hood, the Disney version from the 70s. Yeah, this is my favorite Disney movie pre Lion King because my favorite era of Disney and the one that I grew up with is from the mid to early 90s and the early 2000s, like Lion King and onward. Because Lion King, of course, kind of revolutionized Disney's animation era and like garnered in a huge slew of animated movies following in its wake. Rightfully so. By the way, Lion King is not on this list. Lion King is a good film, but it's also highly overrated in my opinion. And I just think there were other movies that came out after Lion King that just surpassed it and did it better. But still, Lion King is a good film. But pre Lion King, The Adventures of Robin Hood is my favorite. Funny, it's another movie that has a lion in it. As Shawnee Boy here is saying, Prince John is the best character in the film. He's probably the funniest character of the film, but my favorite has always been Little John. Funny enough, voiced by Baloo from The Jungle Book, and I never realized this as a kid, but looking back, Robin Hood probably suffers the most for its cheap animation budget because they reuse a lot of animation cells from previous Disney films. Like there is that one shot that was reused in so many Disney movies, and it was reused in The Jungle Book, and I'm pretty sure they reuse it in Robin Hood, where it originally came from a Winnie the Pooh film where it's Christopher Robin walking his way through the 100-acre woods, and they've reused and reshaded that one where he just like slowly, methodically, nonchalantly just walking his way through the woods. They've reused that piece of footage for so many animated movies. And literally, the animation model for Little John in Robin Hood is just a recolored model of Baloo the bear from the Jungle Book, just colored brown instead of gray. And he has green clothes. It's literally the same. And he's voiced by the same guy as Baloo as well. Oh, okay. I was like, what the hell are you talking about here? But you're quoting the film. Admittedly, I haven't seen Robin Hood in quite a long time, but it was one that I watched numerous times after I met my stepmom, because she's a big fan of Disney films too. And when my sister was born, she went on a mission to buy every single animated Disney movie that she grew up with for my sister to watch. Hiss is also really funny too. Yeah, Prince John and Hiss also make a funny bumbling butt fuck duo. Um, I tried to warn you, but no, you wouldn't listen. You just have to. Ah. 7 is bad. Whoa, luck. That's what it is. Besides, you broke your mother's mirror. Ah, mommy. What a fucking dick. Um, you heard his mightiness. Get moving, creepy. Get lost. Be gone, long one. Yeah, Little John's my favorite character. Not just because I like the voice actor. Um, by the way, the original Jungle Book I also really do like, though that's not on this list. If I was to ever do like a pure like top 10 favorite Disney movies list, Jungle Book probably would be on there. That's another one I grew up with. But yeah, Robin Hood is my favorite of the pre-Lion King era. It even though it suffers the most from reused animation, even like throughout the film, and even reuses pieces of footage that came from earlier in the film, especially in the second half of the movie. Um, but it's got really funny moments. It's got great songs and great music. And when the animation is not reused or cheap, it still is really solid. It's got really solid voice acting and some fun action scenes, especially the archery tournament slash archery battle once Robin Hood's disguise is ruined by Bushel Britches. Yeah, but your mom ain't here. You got a fool old Bushel Britches. Yeah, Adventures of Robin Hood kicks ass. Coming in at number 17, the first animated superhero film on this list, Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay. I've rewatched this a few times since doing my ranking the DC animated movie universe video. God, that name rolls right off your tongue. Um, and this one has grown on me quite a bit. I still say that it suffers from being too short. I think it should at least be a half hour longer than it is. Um, it kind of suffers from having weak villains, and I mean that's really. But there's some characters that I like. Like Copperhead is miserably underused. Um, yeah, I saw that, Sean. Shame the movie sucks. Um, But yeah, Suicide Squad Hell to Pay for what it is and for what they managed to do with the limited resources that they were given. Hell to Pay kicks all sorts of ass. It's got a solid team dynamic with the Suicide Squad team that they have: Deadshot, Copperhead, Bronze Tiger, Captain Boomerang, and Harley Quinn, and I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, the team dynamic's pretty solid. There's a wide variety of characters. There's some pretty funny moments. But the highlight of Hell to Pay, man, is it one fuck the fuck up movie. It's violent. It's filled with swear words. Oh, Deadshot, duh, of course. I don't remember if I mentioned him, but he's in this. He's voiced by Christian Slater, and he does a really good job. But it's very violent, it's very R-rated, it's very bloody and action-packed and balls to the wall. I really dig the 70s grindhouse aesthetic that the film goes for at times. Kind of makes it feel like it's trying to copy the shtick of Planet Terror, but I dig that style. I dig that um, vibe and aesthetic, so it's pleasing to look at. But yeah, the highlight of Suicide Squad Hell to Pay is it is just one balls out crazy, balls to the wall R-rated action movie. And it's entertaining as all living shit. Not much else to say, but Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, pretty damn entertaining. Coming in at number 16 is the first, was this DreamWorks? Yeah, I think it was DreamWorks. Ants. One of my absolute favorite DreamWorks movies, and I do prefer Ants over Bugs Life, and I am aware of the whole controversy that surrounded Ants and Bugs Life. Like Disney was trying to say DreamWorks was ripping them off, and then DreamWorks turned around and said the same thing because Ants and Bugs Life came out the same year, I think around the same time. But I will always take Ants over Bugs Life any day. Ants is really funny. It has a really, really good voice cast. Gene Hackman, Jennifer Lopez, Sharon Stone, Sylvester Stallone, of course, Christopher Walken. Gene Hackman playing an asshole piece of shit villain Like, when does he ever not in any of his movies? Just doing what he does best. Christopher Walken does a really good job. Jennifer Lopez is surprisingly decent in the film, and Sylvester Stallone is awesome as Weaver. Yeah, funny, mine did too. I was given Ants, thinking it was Bug's Life by mistake, and I'm sure that kind of pissed off some parents because this movie is kind of dark. And it's kind of adult in nature. Like, there's some swear words, there's some actual bugs killing bugs in this movie. There's some more mature shit. But that's something I always loved about early DreamWorks movies is that they weren't afraid of putting stuff in kids movies for adults to laugh at too. Ants is the second best example of that, partially because it's a little more what's the word? Ants is more upfront about it, but that's also something that I really like. It's got a fantastic music score. Again, really good voice acting, good animation, especially for the time. But like a lot of early DreamWorks movies, some of the animation's a little 1998, but that's okay. And something that I appreciate about this movie that not a lot of animated films do is that Ants incorporates the facial features of the voice actors into the characters in the film. Like, Weaver, you take one look at that and you're just like, oh, that's Stallone. Or General Mandible, you see him and you say, oh, that's Gene Hackman. Or Azteca, you look at her and you realize, yeah, that's Jennifer Lopez. And that's kind of underrated. I don't really know of any other um, animated movies that incorporate the facial features onto their characters. Not counting animated movies where the characters are just humans, like animated movies where animals are the characters and they still incorporate facial features onto their characters' faces from their voice actors. Ants is the only one I can think of that does that, which is kind of a shame. Yeah, Ants kicks ass. Great music, great animation, great voice acting. Just a fun, somewhat underrated, entertaining flick. I love the music that plays in the opening. Love that music. Coming in at number 15, TMNT 2007, the fourth Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Not my first animated movie that I saw in theaters. I saw Finding Nemo in theaters, but this was the first non-Disney or Pixar animated film. And TMNT is a painfully underrated movie. A lot of people don't realize that it's part of the OG Ninja Turtles continuity. TMNT 1990, Secret of the Ooze, Turtles in Time, and then this. And it was a big surprise when it was revealed at the very end when I saw it in theaters. It was like, oh shit, this, this is in that same continuity. Um, but yeah, I saw it in theaters, and I was like totally shocked. And it's the one movie that I've seen in theaters with my mother. Yeah, the one movie, the one sole film that I've seen in theaters with my mom. And that kind of has helped to cement this as one of my favorites, but TMNT overall is a painfully underrated movie and is one kick-ass Ninja Turtles movie. And hands down is my favorite animated Ninja Turtles movie because I saw Mutant Mayhem, did not love that film. I haven't seen Turtles in Time, but I'm not a big fan of the 80s Ninja Turtles cartoon. Um, or no, not Turtles in Time. Turtles Forever, that's what it was. I have seen Turtles in Time. the third Turtles movie, but not much to say. It's got a. I don't know much about the voice cast, but it has. Oh, Batman versus TMNT. That was a good one too. Yeah. But the voice acting is really solid. All the turtles have distinct voices. Like you realize, yeah, that's Mikey, that's Leo, that's Raph, that's Donnie. Um, good voice acting, good animation. Even though at the time I thought the animation was a little strange. Like, why does everybody have super disproportionately fat fingers, and why do they have really smooth, angular, slanted faces? But whatever. The film has grown on me. Animation is a very moldable and diverse and very what's the word, subjective style of filmmaking. So what appeals to one person can be unappealing to the other, and what one animation director wants to do, others will be like, nah, I don't want to do that. But so whatever. um But yeah, still, TMNT, painfully underrated. It's got really good action scenes. Honestly, I think some of the best action scenes in any animated film I've ever seen, still to this day. It feels like a Ninja Turtles movie. It's got, again, great action scenes, great team dynamic. It's got some good jokes. It can be pretty funny. Great music. Overall, TMNT is painfully underrated and is a good kick-ass time. Turtle power indeed. Although it is a shame that this was the final installment of that continuity of the first four Turtles movies, because I think they should have done at least one or two more. But I don't know why. Maybe this movie didn't do all that well. Let's see. Chris Evans is in this. What the fuck? Sarah Michelle Gellar, Kevin Smith, Patrick Stewart. The fuck? Okay, Chris Evans doesn't voice any of the turtles. Who the hell does Kevin Smith voice? Oh, well, the film made money, costing 34 million, and it made 95.6 million. Oh, there were sequels planned, but those were canceled after Nickelodeon acquired the franchise in 2009. That sucks. Why not carry those over? Studios are assholes. Oh, he voices Casey. Okay. That doesn't surprise me. And Sarah Michelle Gellar is April. Duh. Oh, okay. Kevin Smith was the cook, and Patrick Stewart is Winters. That doesn't surprise me. Hmm. So anyway, yeah, TMNT kicks ass. Number 14, the first Warner Brothers movie on this list, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. Love this movie. I also grew up as a very avid Scooby Doo fan when I was a kid. That was one of few things that was animated that I actually went out of my way to watch a lot. And I had a ton of Scooby Doo movies growing up. I had the OG Scooby Doo meets Batman and Robin. I had a bunch of Scooby Doo VHS tapes that would compile a X amount of episodes on each tape. I watched the second live action movie in theaters, but I watched the first two numerous times growing up. Um, and I also watched a crap ton of those direct to well, no, actually, no, not a crap ton. I did watch a fair few of those late 90s, early 2000s direct to video VHS Scooby Doo movies. The first one of which being Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, and to this day, in my opinion, reigns as the best of those direct to video Scooby Doo movies. The idea of the monsters finally, after 30 plus years, no, almost 30 years. I can't remember when Scooby Doo debuted. It was either 68 or 69. After 29 or 30 years, the idea of the Scooby Gang finally encountering monsters that are real, like indisputably real, um, as the trailers said, except this time the monsters are real. Um, Always has been a big hook for me. I don't mind the typical Scooby Doo formula of encountering people dressing up as monsters, but I think I've always leaned more whenever the Scooby Doo franchise goes full blown supernatural and has them encounter real monsters. Um, it just raises the stakes and makes things spookier and scarier. And especially with Zombie Island, even as a young one, because I was exposed to Resident Evil, I was always afraid of zombies. And even in a Scooby Doo movie, the idea of Scooby Doo encountering zombies scared me. And even as like a 13, 14, 15-year old kid, this movie scared the shit out of me. I loved watching it, but whenever I would go to bed, I would always have the living shit scared out of me. I don't know what it was, man. Zombies would just fuck with me, and they still kind of do to this very day. And while the movie doesn't really scare me to this day, there are a couple scenes that kind of do get under my skin. Namely, the scene when the first zombie is resurrected, Captain Moonscar. That still does kind of give me some chills to this day. But of course, for the first direct-to-video Scooby movie, it's got amazing animation, especially for its time. This felt like the proper successor series to the original 60s Scooby-Doo show. Like, this was the return of the mainline series, finally, after 20-something years. Um, Voice acting is really good. I don't think a lot of the OG cast members voiced their characters for this film and for the rest of the movies onward, but the Scooby Gang all sound very similar, if not the same, as they did in the original 60s show. The animation, it looks like classic Scooby Doo, just done in the 90s. There's some really funny jokes, some really funny animation gags, especially with how anthropomorphic Scooby is, especially when his nose turns into an accordion. That's always been funny to me. Um, some spooky moments, some great songs, great music. This is just a kick-ass fucking Scooby Doo movie. I have seen others that I've liked. Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase was really good. That blew my mind when I was a kid. Um, oh yeah, Scooby Doo and the Ghoul School. That had real monsters. I had that one when I was a kid too, but somehow it became the cursed tape because every VHS player that I had after a couple of years of owning that movie when I was young at my grandparents, whenever I tried to play that movie, The VHS players would always get destroyed, much to my grandfather's dismay. But I remember liking that one a lot too. And the Boo Brothers as well. I like that one a lot too. But after this, yeah, Cyber Chase was really good. That blew my mind when I was a kid. Because that was the first time I was seeing two versions of the Scooby Doo gang. So that was kind of doing multiverse stuff long before multiverse stuff was a thing. Um, Scooby Doo and the Alien Invaders was also a really good one that I really liked. I didn't much care for The Witch's Curse. Um, Legend of the Vampire was decent, although that was more so spinning off from What's New Scooby Doo, which I never was a fan of. Um, and the last one that I remember seeing, it was either I think it was the monster from Mexico or the one about the Loch Ness monster. Yeah, I think that was the last one that I remember seeing. And I am aware that Zombie Island got a sequel back in 2019, Return to Zombie Island, which ruined the legacy of Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, sadly, by saying, oh, wait, no, the zombies and cat people actually weren't real. It was the effects of swamp gas. Fuck you. Long intestine style. Go fuck yourself. Get out of here with that bullshit. But still, overall, long tangent aside, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island kicks all kinds of ass. I love that movie. Coming in at number 13, the next DreamWorks movie, Kung Fu Panda 2. Now, don't get me wrong, the first Kung Fu Panda I also saw in theaters, and it was a hellaciously good time when I first saw it. I got it on DVD, and I loved it in the theater, and I loved it even more watching it over and over again on DVD. It was very action packed, very entertaining, very well made, a great voice cast. That's something that I've always preferred about DreamWorks over Disney. DreamWorks tends to shell out money to get solid voice casts, like with Kung Fu Panda, Jack Black, Dustin Hoffman, Jackie Chan, um, Seth Rogen, Angelina Jolie. What's her name? Chinese chick, Lucy Liu, Ian McShane. Kung Fu Panda is awesome, but Kung Fu Panda 2 does all of that, all of the stuff that's awesome about the first Kung Fu Panda movie, and just cranks it up to 11. Again, a really great cast. All of the voice actors return from the first movie. The animation is even better. It's even flashier. It's even more colorful. It's even more action packed. But the main thing that catches me about Kung Fu Panda 2, it's funnier than shit. There's one scene that when I first saw Kung Fu Panda 2, I was like wheezing and clutching myself to keep myself from passing out. I was laughing so hard when Poe gets the needle right between his eyes. He just goes, ah. See, even to this day, it gets me. And thankfully, it's the one Kung Fu Panda movie that Roman kind of likes. He's very picky with his movies. But Kung Fu Panda 2, I haven't seen it nearly as much as the first Kung Fu Panda film. I didn't much care for the third movie. I thought it was just kind of meh. And I have not seen Kung Fu Panda 4, but I have heard that it was very underwhelming. But I did see some of the animated Kung Fu Panda TV series, and I thought that was entertaining enough for a spin-off TV series. I only saw like maybe 5 or 6 episodes of it though. But I liked what I saw. Yeah, Kung Fu Panda 2, love it. It's hilarious, it's action packed, it's entertaining as hell. Um Yeah, good time. So I've heard. Kung Fu Panda 4 is the most underwhelming of them all. I don't know, it'd be pretty hard to top part 3, because I thought part 3 was very, very just blah. Aside from an entertaining performance by J.K. Simmons as the villain. Coming in at number 12, hey Jackie boy, fuck you. Coming at number 12 is another tie, Shrek and Shrek 2. I don't understand how anybody could be a hater of Shrek. Shrek and Shrek 2, like when it comes to animated movies that I grew up with, from here on out on the list after Shrek, with one or two examples, up until like s- the top 5, this along with my top 5 except for one, this is animation that I immediately think of from my childhood. Shrek and Shrek 2 is like near peak animated cinema for me. The first Shrek movie I grew up with from a very, very young age. Shrek, I think, might have been the first non Disney animated movie and the first CG animated movie that I remember seeing that I really liked. Because beforehand, I'd only been exposed to traditionally animated Disney films. But Shrek showed me that you can do a different flavor of animation and it can still work. And boy, does Shrek actually work. What I said earlier about Ants being a good animated movie for kids and adults to enjoy, Shrek is the best of that approach in the fact that Shrek is a movie that kids can watch and laugh at and enjoy, but adults can also watch it and catch onto jokes that the filmmakers snuck in for the adults to catch onto. But what's good about them is that they go completely over the kids' heads. But once those kids get older and they watch the film at an older age, they too then can understand the jokes and be like, and appreciate it even more and laugh at it even more. It's sad how that's not really done with animated movies nowadays, and it hasn't been done for a long time, unfortunately. I can't really think of any. Maybe one Pixar movie did that, Ratatouille, um, which that would also be another honorable mention. I don't have that on this list, but hella an honorable mention, especially for Disney and Pixar. Love Ratatouille. Um, but yeah, there's humor in Shrek for both adults and kids to enjoy, and I think it's brilliantly executed. Shrek 2 does this as well. More on that in a second. But even though the story of Shrek is quite simple, it's just a rescue the damsel in distress. Um, you know, monster falls in love with princess, and then princess falls in love with monster type story. It is very simple. That though is part of the point of Shrek because it was made as a direct parody of a lot of fairy tale cliches that Disney had been doing for the last 70 years at the time Shrek came out. So it is intentional and that is part of the joke and that's part of why it was made. It is poking fun at a lot of those fairy tale cliches. So it is still funny and it is still well done. Um, but the highlight of the entire movie, duh, is Shrek himself, voiced by the awesome Mike Myers. And this movie, again, with it being DreamWorks, has a really solid voice cast. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and John Lithgow as Lord Farquaad, Lord Fuckwad, as I call him. Um, And kind of like Ants too, there are some animation scenes that have not aged well, unfortunately. A lot of it's in the faces of the characters like Shrek and Lord Farquaad in particular. Farquaad especially at points looks pretty stiff. And there are some scenes where you can tell that the animators were kind of stretched for time. And of all the Shrek movies, even more so than part three, which I really do not care for, a lot of the backgrounds and scenery look kind of stiff. Like they look like cutscenes from a video game where the only things that are moving is the characters. Like the trees and the grass and the sky, everything looks so flat and still. So even though this came after Ants, Shrek kind of does show its age a little worse than Ants does. But the movie makes up for those shortcomings with, its characters, its humor, its music, its soundtrack, what of all of which is just kick ass and entertaining as hell. And Shrek 2, on the other hand, takes everything that was awesome about the first Shrek movie and like many other sequels that I'm a huge fan of, just bumps them up to 11. The animation is greatly improved. Um, oh, hi Tay. Long time no talk. Yeah, the animation is drastically improved. A lot of the backgrounds and scenery actually kind of moves and feels more alive. Um, the humor is still on point. It's a lot flashier and it's a lot more colorful. You can tell that the animators are more comfortable and more experienced with this kind of animation. And again, the voice acting from the returning cast members is still on point and kicks ass. And there's even a couple new additions, like John Cleese as the king of Far, Far Away. And who was the fairy godmother? Was it Joan Crawford? Oh, and Antonio Banderas, of course, as Puss in Boots is fucking awesome. um, oh, here it is, duh, right in front of me. Oh, I was totally off. It was Jennifer Saunders. Okay. Um, yeah, she's a good villain too. She feels definitely like a typical Disney crazy villain. Although she too is kind of it's part of that parody of a lot of Disney tropes where you'd think the fairy godmother would be a good guy or at least a hero, but here she's flipped on her head and turned into a villain. So that's good too. Also, again, like I said, great animation, a kick-ass soundtrack, some really good jokes, and some amazing songs. Shrek 2 is peak DreamWorks, in my opinion. And Kung Fu Panda 2 is really good as well, but yeah, in my opinion, DreamWorks have never surpassed Shrek, in my opinion, or Shrek 2, I should say specifically. DreamWorks have never ever made a movie that was better than Shrek 2, in my opinion. As for the rest of the Shrek franchise, Shrek 3, I liked it when it first came out, but I do not think sponsor number two, that Shrek 3 has aged well at all. It looks like a TV movie or like a TV special that was released in theaters, like a Nickelodeon or Disney Channel um, TV original movie just released in theaters. And Shrek Forever After was a little bit better than part 3, but it was just not a satisfying fourth film. And it's kind of sad. That's where the Shrek franchise has been stuck on ever since Shrek 4. I haven't seen any of the Puss in Boots movies. I have no interest in those movies. Puss in Boots is good as a side character or a sidekick for Shrek for me, but I don't think that he's strong enough to carry himself an entire film. Just nah. I have heard of a lot of the good things that surround the newest Puss in Boots movie, but nah, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Mike Myers, please get off your ass and give us another Shrek movie, please. Stop watching hockey. And while you're at it, give us another fucking Austin Powers movie. Damn. It's been 23 years since Goldmember, Mike. Can we please have another one? At least one? So overall, yeah, Shrek and Shrek 2, kick ass. Oh, well, okay. At least I'm getting half my wish. No, not interested. Coming in at number 11, Star Wars The Clone Wars. Um, Not going to say too much about this, as I did talk about it a fair bit in my ranking the Star Wars franchise with Jackie Boy, but this is the pilot film for the Star Wars The Clone Wars TV series that I'm talking about. The one from 2008. But the TCW film, it too does suffer from some animation issues. Like at times it's very stiff and very prototypey and very experimental. But this does still feel like a solid Star Wars movie. It's got a great voice cast. Um, Sam Jackson coming back briefly as Mace Windu, and Ian McDermott coming back briefly as Palpatine, and also Christopher Lee voicing Count Dooku. This feels like a good first chapter into the Clone Wars era of Star Wars. Like it feels like a good bridge between Episode 2 and Episode 3, despite what some Star Wars fans will say. But I don't give a shit about other Star Wars fans. Um, it's got some great action scenes. Despite the somewhat stiff animation, it does still look and feel like Star Wars, and it sounds like Star Wars. And it has two really solid lightsaber duels: Obi-Wan versus Ventress and Anakin versus Count Dooku. And it has the introduction of one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars, being Ahsoka Tano. She is a walking contradiction, retcon, and plot hole, sure, but I still do like Ahsoka quite a bit. I think she's a really fun and unique character. But just overall, I have a lot of nostalgia for Star Wars The Clone Wars. Like I said in my Star Wars video, this was the one brief return that I had to the world of Star Wars during my stagnation period of the Star Wars franchise for me. Like for a solid 3 or 4 months, I was pretty obsessed with this movie. Um, and ever since then, yeah, it has some flaws. It does feel like a direct to video Disney sequel, like Cinderella 2 or Tarzan and Jane, where it feels like 3 or 4 episodes of the TV series just stitched into one movie. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And despite I do think the animation looking good, it does show that it only cost $8 million. Um, but still, I dig TCW as a movie, and I dig it as an animated movie. I think it's quite underrated. Aside from The Rise of Skywalker, it might be the most underrated Star Wars movie, in my opinion. It's certainly most overlooked. Coming in at number 10, Star Wars Clone Wars. This is a bit of an odd misnomer because in this case, I'm talking about the Star Wars animated micro series that acted as its own bridge between Star Wars Episode 2 and Episode 3. The little mini series that was released on Cartoon Network that is essentially Star Wars meets Samurai Jack, as it was created and not really created, but it was worked on by Genndy Tartakovsky, the same guy who did Samurai Jack and would later do Primal. And yeah, that's a good like sum up of the show. It's Star Wars meets Samurai Jack. It's much more visual in nature, where it does environmental storytelling, just like Samurai Jack. A lot of the characters don't speak as much. They let their actions determine like and progress the flow of the story, just like Samurai Jack. It's very action packed. It's very bombastic and it's very um brilliantly animated and very explosive and hard hitting as fuck. Also like Samurai Jack. And even though technically this was released on TV, the entire series, both volumes of this series, can be edited together into just one 2 hour movie. I think it's barely 2 hours. Yeah. Um, and in some ways, it does act as a better bridge between episodes 2 and 3. Like over the course of this series, you do see both Obi-Wan and Anakin progress as characters. Whereas something that is jarring about the 2008 TCW movie, even though this takes place long before the events of episode 3, Obi-Wan and Anakin look exactly like how they do in episode 3, and this takes place right after episode 2. So it kind of just looks like Obi-Wan and Anakin just, or Obi-Wan specifically, just got a haircut and was as powerful as he was in Revenge of the Sith. And that kind of is how he acts for a majority of the TCW series. So it is a bit jarring in that aspect. But with 2003 Clone Wars, you do see a progression and a buildup of character and a development of character for Obi-Wan and Anakin as 2003 Clone Wars goes on and on. And we actually do get to see Anakin become a Jedi Knight, unlike in TCW 2008. But the main reason why I stick Clone Wars 2003 over Clone Wars 2008, the action scenes are better, the animation is better, the characters are better, the voice acting, I'd say it's about the same, but it feels more in line with the Star Wars films than the TCW series does. But yeah, the main reason why I like 2003 Clone Wars, it's Samurai Jack meets Star Wars, and it's kick ass and entertaining as all living fuck. Coming in at number 9, this is the one Disney movie for a while, Tarzan. I'll talk about this a little later, but this is one of my absolute favorite Disney movies, like traditional classic Disney. Outside of my number one spot, which I will explain that when I get to it, Tarzan to me is peak Disney. The Oh, okay. I have my bedroom window. I was hearing noises. Well, whatever. The biggest highlight of Tarzan is the fantastic array of music and songs done by Phil Collins. God damn, was he just like firing on all cylinders with this movie. The music and songs are like breathtakingly amazing to listen to. Um well also too it has amazing animation. Let's see. Who What's the voice cast for this movie? Oh, 1999. I thought it was 2000. Oh, Brendan Fraser auditioned as Tarzan twice, but then he went on to do George of the Jungle. Um, that would have been cool, but Tony Goldwyn as Tarzan does a good job too. Minnie Driver, Glenn Close. Oh, second Disney movie because she was also Cruella. Rosie O'Donnell as Turk, Brian Blessed, Nigel Hawthorne, and Lance Henriksen. Hmm. Oh, and Wayne Knight as Tantor. He's funny. So yeah, a good voice cast, but the true highlight of this movie is the music and songs and animation, all of which are just outstanding. Maybe, who knows? um, I don't know how accurate this movie is to the original 1912 Tarzan story, although Disney doesn't have a strong track record of whenever they do an animated movie based on an older story, they're not very faithful, as some later Disney movies that I like will prove. But, that's okay because it does its own thing and it's a kids movie. There is some pretty dark and gnarly and nasty stuff that happens in Tarzan that kids probably wouldn't like seeing. Same goes for the Jungle Book. There's some messed up things in the Jungle Book that the Disney movie does not adapt. Um, but yeah, Tarzan just kicks all kinds of ass. Again, it's that music and it's the songs by Phil Collins. Man, he just is fantastic to listen to. And it does also have one of my favorite jokes, um, that my grandmother, to this day, still cracks up at, and she imitates quite often, especially when I was living with my grandparents. She would do this to me all the time. It was when Tarzan is sneaking up on Kala, trying to scare her, and she just goes, "Don't even think about it." How'd you know it was me? I'm your mother. I know everything. Now, where have you been? I thought you knew everything. Cracks me up to this day. Cracks my grandmother up to this day, and she would do that to me all the time. The exact same voice and the exact same way as Kala in this movie. Don't even think about it. Tarzan kicks ass. That's a great song. Yeah. I wanna know. Can you show me? I wanna know about these strangers like me. I love that one. Although I think my favorite might be the first song that they use for the beginning of this movie. Um, but all across the board, the songs and music just kick ass, as I've said a bunch of times. So moving on, number 8, the first Sony animated um, movie on this list. I think it was Sony. Oh, yeah, this is Sony. It was put out by Columbia. Monster House from 2006. A very, in my opinion, very underrated and overlooked animated movie from the mid 2000s. When it was initially coming out, I had very little interest in this. I just did not look like something that I would dig. And admittedly, the animation at the time kind of put me off. But when I went on a vacation with my dad and stepmom to Reno, Nevada, we drove and they let me sit down with a portable DVD player with this movie and a few others. And I was just like, fine, I'll fucking watch Monster House. And I ended up loving the shit out of it. And I watched it maybe 20 times over the course of that vacation. I love this movie to this day. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that Monster House kind of tends to be overlooked, even though it's got a really solid voice cast, and also got some nominations for the Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature and Golden Globe Award for Best Animated Feature, but it lost to Happy Feet and Cars, respectively. I fucking hate Happy Feet. That's a okay. It was Sony's first computer animated film produced by Sony Pictures Imageworks and Relativity's first animated film. And it was also another movie where the human characters were animated using motion capture animation, which was previously used in Robert Zemeckis's The Polar Express. Though thankfully, the animation in this movie is far, far superior to The Polar Express. God damn. Like, okay, Polar Express, of all the animated films from the early 2000s, that's the one that, in my opinion, has aged the worst. Like, a lot of that movie's animation is just downright hideous nowadays. Fucking A, The Polar Express, just holy fucking A. But yeah, Monster House has a really solid voice cast. Mitchell Musso, Sam Lerner, Spencer Locke, Steve Buscemi. Oh, he was Nevercracker. Duh, of course he was Nevercracker. Duh, why didn't I fucking think of that? Kathleen Turner, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Kevin James, Nick Cannon, and Jason Lee. Always gotta love Jason Lee. He's really funny. But yeah, Monster House. It's very underrated and it's very overlooked. Again, solid voice cast. It's got some good humor. It has good animation, although sometimes it does look a bit stiff. But anything surpasses the Polar Express. But still, I think it does work. It does have some surprisingly effective spooky moments for a kids movie. Like, this is definitely a more intense kids horror movie, quote unquote. Like, even because I saw this around 2008 or no, yeah, 2007 or 8, and even back then, animated movies didn't really get to me. But this one, there were a couple scenes that kind of got under my skin. Um, a great music score, some pretty entertaining action scenes, and some funny jokes and fun characters. Yeah, Monster House is the shit. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's a shame how underrated this movie is. Coming in at number 7, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. First Marvel movie on this list. And the only animated Marvel movie on this list. Um, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I've talked about this quite a bit in a lot of my superhero videos, but yeah, this movie, when I first saw the trailer and I saw the hype surrounding it, and when it was first coming out, I was not really interested. And a lot of that did have to do with the animation. It just looked too strange and otherworldly and stiff and just kind of off-putting to me. But Meadow, when her and I first started dating, told me that she really wanted to go see this in theaters. And the last couple movies that we'd seen in theaters were more things that I wanted to see. So I was like, okay, we'll go see Into the Spider-Verse for you. And I came out of the theater and I was blown away by how much I enjoyed the movie. It's very original. It's very well made. It feels like a huge breath of fresh air for the superhero genre, but as well as just animated superhero movies in general. No, TMNT counts as a superhero movie, but this was the first and so far only animated Marvel movie that I've seen in theaters. At least the ones I can think of off the top of my head. So that in and of itself kind of lands it as some being somewhat special for me. And funny enough, it was the first Spider-Man film that I'd seen in theaters since Spider-Man 2002. So yeah, it went on to be one of my favorite films that I had seen in theaters with Meadow. It's one of my biggest fond movie memories with Meadow, like in our entire relationship. I've seen this movie only about 4 or 5 times, but every time I do see it, I'm just transported back to when her and I first started dating, like when we first saw it in theaters and when I first got it on DVD, and just her and I sitting there marveling at the animation and colors and just enjoying a kick-ass movie. And funny, when Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse came out, when I got that on DVD, I rewatched the first movie to have like a nice double bill. And she was like, I don't know if I want to watch the first movie. I really just want to see the second one. But I rewatched the first movie, and within 10 minutes, she was already sucked back into the first movie. And when it was over, she was like, okay, no, I actually do like this movie still. And then she and I went on to watch the second movie together. She liked the second one more than I did. And still, I do prefer the first movie. I prefer Into the Spider-Verse over Across the Spider-Verse, but both movies are still really good. But Into the Spider-Verse, yeah, kicks ass. The animation is strange, um, but I think you can quickly get used to it and accept it as its own style. And it is appealing to look at. There are some weird animation cells at times, but you kind of just roll with it because this is such a strange and unique and original film, or at least it's a strange, unique, and original style of animation. So you just kind of go with the flow, at least in my opinion. Yeah, in the Spider Verse, great cast, a good roster of various Spider-Man variants, a good and engaging story, some fun action scenes, some great music, including an amazing song by Post Malone, "Sunflower." Yeah, Into the Spider Verse kicks ass. One of my favorite superhero films of all time, and obviously one of my favorite animated movies of all time. Coming in at number 6, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. My favorite Batman film, live action or animated or otherwise. I almost put Batman and Harley Quinn on this list, so add that as another honorable mention. But when it comes to DC animated movies, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns is the top of the top of the top. Strange coming from me, considering how anti-Batman that I am. But you know what? I just got to give credit where credit is due. Uh, yeah, I figure Shawnee Boy would say that. And I am specifically talking about the deluxe edition of this film that edits both parts of Dark Knight Returns into one full feature. Um, yeah, that's the one I prefer, and technically that makes it the longest DC animated movie ever made. I think it's like 2 hours and 20 something minutes, but it is a kick ass fucking movie. Fantastic animation, a really good adaptation of the Dark Knight Returns comic. I think it does it beat for beat. Um, and the animation is far superior to the artwork in the original comic. The artwork in the original comic, I don't think has aged all that well. It may have been good for its time, but in 2025, it doesn't look that great. It has an amazing voice cast. I don't know who voices the Joker, but that guy does a really good job as the Joker. Superman's pretty good. Um, but of course, it has my number one favorite voice actor as Bruce Wayne slash Batman, that being Peter Weller, RoboCop, voicing Batman. He does a spectacular job as Batman. He kicks all sorts of ass. There's a couple RoboCop Easter eggs that are thrown into this movie as nice little winks to the fans. It's got amazing action scenes, and this movie is violent as fuck. This should have been the very first R-rated Batman movie, in my opinion, not The Killing Joke. Oh, you got to meet Peter Weller? Oh, that's cool. Did you ask him to say Dead or Alive, you're coming with me. Your move, creep. And it has a way better proper fight between Batman and Superman than the actual Batman versus Superman movie. Yeah, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns is a fantastic piece of superhero cinema, um, and it's a fantastic piece of animated cinema. Like this is yeah, this is peak animated superhero cinema. Ironic coming from me because I'm not much of a Batman fan, but fucking A, you know what? Weird miracles can happen. I can like a Batman movie, and this is the best of the best. Coming in at number 5. Now we're coming into some major heavy hitters. So hold your horses. Coming in at number 5 is another tie. The OG Toy Story trilogy. I do not acknowledge the existence of Toy Story 4. I don't give a fuck about Toy Story 4, like at all. That movie should not have been made, regardless of whether or not. I mean, yeah, it was cool. They brought back all the original voice actors. They brought in Keanu Reeves, which was cool and all. But Toy Story 4 should never have been made. The original Toy Story trilogy, 1, 2, and 3, had it not been for part 4, it would have been the perfect trilogy. Disney likes to do that. They like to fuck up trilogies because they also should have stopped with Pirates of the Caribbean 3, but then 4 and especially 5 just fucked that up. Toy Story 3 is where the series should have ended, and Pirates 3 is also where the Pirates movie should have ended, but whatever. But yeah, Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. So the first film I grew up with quite a bit. This was another movie that I watched a lot living with my grandparents when I was young. And like Ants and Shrek, although actually I think Toy Story might be the worst when it comes to this. I mean, by default, it is the oldest of these movies. Oh, Toy Story's turning 30 this year, I think. Was it 1995? Yep, 1995. Toy Story is turning 30 this year. Cool. Um, in some shots, especially with the human characters, there's some animation that has not aged well at all. Namely, Sid, the asshole neighbor kid. Some of the shots of his face have not aged well at all. And there's a couple shots of Woody and Buzz that also haven't aged all that well either. And like with Shrek, there are some scenes where the world around the main characters looks very stiff and plastic. Um, but because this was the early stages of Pixar, I think this was Pixar's first big major feature film. So that can be understandable and it can be forgiven because this was, if it wasn't their first, it still was in their early days as a film studio. So they were still working out the kinks. And it is very experimental in many ways, but still, that's part of its charm too. Um, but the characters are all entertaining and engrossing. Tom Hanks is fantastic as Woody. Tim Allen is fantastic as Buzz Lightyear. There's a fun Arlie Ermy cameo. It's got a lot of what soon would be Pixar regulars, like the guy who plays Ham would go on to play the Abominable Snowman and Monsters Inc., Mac and Cars, the leader of a school of herring and Finding Nemo. Um, yeah, great voice acting. At times, really good animation. It definitely is a very colorful film. As you know, World of Toys, you probably would expect to be very colorful and flashy. Yeah, Toy Story, it's a good start. It's not my favorite of the original trilogy, but it is a good start. Toy Story 2 it's funny how Toy Story 2 was originally supposed to be a direct-to-video animated movie, but then at the last minute, Pixar decided, nah, let's throw this in theaters. Probably because it came out the same year as The Phantom Menace, and because this movie has a shit ton of Star Wars references and nods, they're just like, yeah, let's try to compete with Phantom Menace. Funny, 19 years later, Disney would steal Star Wars from 20th Century Fox. Whatever. Although the Star Wars nods and references are much appreciated, this movie definitely feels bigger. It feels more epic. The stakes feel a lot higher. It's more action packed. It's more entertaining. The animation is, I wouldn't say it's drastically better. Like it's not the same difference between Shrek 1 and 2, but there is a noticeable bump in quality. It definitely is a lot smoother than it was in the first film, so that's appreciated. But I probably would say that Toy Story 2 is my favorite, but I don't know. Toy Story 3 is also really good. Toy Story 3, I didn't love the first time I saw it, but the more that I would rewatch it, specifically with my sister, because that's when I really started watching it. This was her favorite when she was like a 3 or 4 year old. I'd watched this movie a lot with her, and it just kept growing on me more and more. And one thing that I like about this is that Toy Story 3 is a prison break movie. So if you want to pair this off with the first season of the show Prison Break or Oz, it would be very fitting. Or Shawshank Redemption. Um, the animation is much better than the first two films, especially since they'd had 11 years to smooth out and perfect the animation style. It definitely does look a lot better. And again, the voice acting is really solid. I do like that all four movies do bring back the core voice cast. And Toy Story 3 is it's simultaneously, I think, the funniest of the original trilogy, but it's also the might be the darkest of the original trilogy. Which you'd think would clash, but in this one, no, not really. Although this one might also be the grossest of the original trilogy because we see kids shoving toys up their noses and getting slobber and snot all over them. Yeah, I could kind of do without that. Not much a fan of that. No, sorry. But still, the original Toy Story trilogy, it's not peak Disney, but it almost is peak Pixar. But peak Pixar for me is number 4, The Incredibles. Fucking A is this one incredible fucking movie, no pun intended. Again, not really interested in this when it first came out. Um I didn't really see much of the hype, and I didn't see a whole lot of marketing surrounding it. I did see a couple of the toy commercials, mostly for McDonald's. But I just so happened to watch The Incredibles on a whim at my babysitter's place. Man, does this movie kick ass. It has a amazing fucking music score. It sounds very similar to a lot of James Bond music. In fact, I swear there are some tracks of music in The Incredibles that are just straight up James Bond music taken from Thunderball specifically, I think. Um, yeah, fantastic music, a great animation, a great voice cast of a lot of, I mean, there's Sam Jackson, but there's a lot of like good B-list type actors, namely is it Craig Nelson? Oh yeah, I was right. Craig T. Nelson. And another movie with Jason Lee playing a villain this time. But he always plays an asshole in pretty much anything that he's in. But yeah, a great superhero film. It feels like it's both a it feels like it's mostly parodying Marvel because you could say The Incredibles are kind of a homage to the Fantastic Four, like Mr. Incredible's the Thing, Elastigirl is Mr. Fantastic, Violet literally is the Invisible Woman, and you could say Dash is the Flash, and Frozone is kind of an inverse version of the Human Torch. But yeah, it feels like both a parody slash homage of both Marvel and DC, but it has a pretty interesting and decently fleshed out superhero universe that I think they should explore more of because it took them 14 fucking years to make an Incredibles 2, which I have not seen. I wanted an Incredibles 2 for so long, but when it finally came out, I just didn't care anymore. And I have heard that it wasn't nearly as good as the first movie. Um, yeah, The Incredibles, great action scenes, amazing music, good animation, good voice acting. The Incredibles is just it's an incredibly kind of underappreciated movie in my opinion. And is peak Pixar. This is probably my favorite Pixar movie, undoubtedly. Blah. Coming in at number 3, let's see, who did this one? Oh. Okay, it was Universal. Okay, this is the one and only Universal movie on this list. My number 3 is Coraline. I love the living shit out of this movie. I liked it when it first came out, but Meadow has made me greatly appreciate this movie much more than I would have otherwise. She is a huge fan of this movie, and this is one of our favorite movies to sit down together and watch just as like a date night. Coraline is an amazing, amazing movie. I haven't seen a lot of Henry Selick's other movies, although I have seen Nightmare Before Christmas, which I think is miserably overrated. And I have also seen James and the Giant Peach. That would also be on my list of. Oops. Yeah, that would also be on my list of favorite pure Disney movies. James and the Giant Peach kicks ass. But I like Coraline way more. This is my favorite of Henry Selick's movies. Um, and this movie also oozes Tim Burton as fuck, even though I don't think Tim Burton had anything to do with this movie. No, I don't think so. I don't even think he was a like a producer. And I want to get this out of the way real quick too. I have heard of a lot of the allegations that surround Neil Gaiman, the writer of the original short story of this film, and kind of like with Jeepers Creepers and Victor Salva, I am aware of what he's apparently done, but I want to separate the creator from the art. And you just can't ask me to give up Coraline. Coraline is just a fantastic movie. I think, yeah, this is the one and only stop motion movie on this list, too. Well, for me, this is peak stop motion. And kind of like with Monster House, this is how you do a kids horror movie. Because honestly, even as an adult, there are some scenes in this movie that are kind of unsettling and kind of almost hard to watch, especially as a kid. There's some really good creepy and spooky moments that permeate this movie that do kind of make you jump and squirm in your seat, but it still has this kind of playful, fun overtone to it, at least in my opinion. But beautiful stop motion animation. I'm sure a lot of scenes in this movie were an absolute bitch to animate, especially the jumping mouse circus uh, halfway through this movie. I'm sure that was quite a task to animate. Um, Great music, a very flashy and colorful and beautiful world that is animated in this movie. Great voice cast. We got Terry Hatcher, Dakota Fanning, another Jennifer Saunders performance, Keith David, and Ian McShane once again. Um, yeah, I don't think Tim Burton had anything to do with this movie, which is funny because I also do think that this movie kind of does have a Tim Burton feel. Although of the three Henry Selick um, animated movies that I've seen, this has the least Tim Burton style in it, in my opinion. But I think that's for the better. Um, yeah, not much else to say. Coraline kicks all kinds of ass, and the it's either the Beldam or Bedlam, whatever it is. Because in the book, it's either Bedlam or Beldam, and in the movie, it's either Bedlam or Beldam. But I think it's Beldam in the movie. She is one evil, evil, nasty bitch, and she's quite freaky and scary at times too. Yeah, Coraline is an amazing movie in my opinion. Oh man, my back. Oh, it's okay. We're almost done. Coming in at number 2 is another tie. All Dogs Go to Heaven 1 and 2. The only Don Bluth movies on this list. I do like other Don Bluth movies, although the only other ones that come to mind is the Land Before Time series. But for me, especially the first All Dogs Go to Heaven, this is peak Don Bluth, in my opinion. Um, for a long time, I did prefer the second movie. The second one was the first one that I ever saw. But why does that surprise you, Shawnee boy? But the first All Dogs Go to Heaven is. I am also aware of some of the circumstances that surrounded poor little Judith Barzey. This was released after her death at the hands of her father earlier in 1988. And I am also aware that Burt Reynolds had to redo his final scene with Charlie talking to Anne Marie like 30 times because he kept breaking down in the studio because this was after Judith had died. Um, so that kind of like with the original Land Before Time, that like stigma is kind of not really soured this movie, but it's just kind of an unfortunate event that is eternally tied to this movie. But I look past that tragedy and I just focus on the film. But All Dogs Go to Heaven is still an amazing movie. It's got great animation, a really good voice cast, some really good songs. It does have some good jokes, but this is undoubtedly probably the darkest of all, certainly of all Don Bluth's movies, but it might just be Suicide Squad Hell to Pay is not dark, even though it is R-rated and violent. Like, especially for a kid's film, this might be the darkest movie on this list. Like, this is at times not a very fun movie. It's kind of messed up and cruel at times. But yeah, Don Bluth definitely does know how to tug on the heartstrings, which he does fantastically in this movie. Um, not much to say about the first All Dogs Go to Heaven. It's just a fantastic animated movie. Again, great songs, amazing animation, really good voice acting. And All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, it's not quite as good as the first movie. Like, it's definitely not as dark, although it does kind of carry over a lot of the same themes from the first movie. Oh no, I'll hella pass on Grave of the Fireflies. I've seen Anime Abandon's review of Grave of the Fireflies. I'm good. Hell no. I don't want to watch kids die for an hour and a half. No. Mm-mm. Yeah, All Dogs Go to Heaven 2 is not quite as good as the first one. It's not as dark. It's not as emotional. It's not as entertaining or action packed. It's probably funnier. Actually, yeah, I'd say it's a bit funnier than the first movie, and I think it's the only movie where Charlie Sheen ever like did voice acting for a film, but he does a good job. But I had to throw in All Dogs Go to Heaven too because I grew up with it and I have a crap ton of nostalgia. And like a lot of other ties on this list, I just can't not have one without the other. And it's just a shame that the All Dogs Go to Heaven franchise took a sharp nosedive right after part two, because then there was the Christmas Carol and the short-lived TV series, and then that's it. Um, Fuck. But yeah, first two All Dogs Go to Heaven films. Love them. And finally, coming in at number one. This is a three-way tie. I've said this before, but I'm going to explain in greater detail. My number one is a three-way tie. Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney version, Mulan, and Hercules, also the Disney version. These are all three of these are Disney movies. They're simultaneously my three favorite Disney films, and they're simultaneously my all-time favorite animated movies in general. When I think of animation, Tarzan and the first two Shrek films and the first All Dogs Go to Heaven film all do come to mind, and they come really, really close to these three. But I will always, always think of Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mulan, and especially Hercules when I think of animation. I'll get to that in just a minute. Hunchback of Notre Dame is the youngest of these three. I first saw Hunchback when I first met my stepmom. As I stated, she is a huge fan of Disney movies, and when her and my dad started dating, she brought over her entire movie collection when she moved in with us. And I discovered that she just had this huge, like this right here, filled to the brim with Disney VHS tapes, like stacked from top to bottom in each compartment of just nothing but Disney VHS tapes. And on a whim, she decided to throw in Hunchback of Notre Dame. I was like 20 minutes into it, and I sat down and I was instantly sucked in. Hunchback of these three probably adapts the tone, look, and some of the events of the original novel by Victor Hugo the best, although it is still very Disneyified. But one thing that immediately and still to this day sticks with me about the Disney Hunchback is how dark it is. This is undoubtedly, in my opinion, of the ones that I've seen anyway, the darkest animated Disney movie that I've ever seen and has ever been made. Um, it's very doomy and gloomy. It's very kind of hopeless at times. It's very fucked up and brutal and cruel. But so is the story, so it only makes sense. Even if it is heavily watered down for kids, Hunchback still hits pretty hard at times. But an amazing voice cast. Let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. 1996. Let's see. Oh, I was right. Yeah, Victor Hugo. I got it right. Ugh. Jesus. Okay, so we have Tom Hulse, I think it's how you pronounce it, as Quasimodo. Demi Moore as Esmeralda. She does a fantastic job. Tony Jay as Judge Claude Frollo, my favorite Disney villain, undoubtedly. Frollo is a complete piece of garbage, but he's like tied with Bennett and Captain Rhodes from the original Day of the Dead. Frollo is the epitome of bad guys you love to hate. And of course, Kevin Kline as Captain Phoebus. Uh, that's about it. Um, Yeah, great voice cast, really good voice acting, some fantastic songs, amazing animation, and that dark tone and the operatic singing throughout the score for this film is just fan fucking tastic, captivating to this very day. And of these three, this is the one that I introduced to Meadow that she ended up loving because she hadn't seen this movie before 2019 and she ended up loving it. I was very happy for that. Mulan is the second oldest of this. I watched Mulan from a very early age up to present, and it's always been a favorite. It's really funny. It's got really good action scenes and really good animation. Some really funny characters, like especially Yao. um, I am Yao, king of the rock. And I'll do it with my shirt on. He's really funny. Chien Po is really funny. Um, I don't remember the skinny guy's name, but he's also really funny. The three bumbling butt fucks in this movie are really funny, in my opinion. But yeah, great animation, really good voice cast. It's got Mr. Miyagi in it, voicing the Emperor. He's really good too. Great songs and great music, especially what's it called? There's the training song, "Let's Get Down to Business," I think it is, or "We Are Men," I think that's what it is. And then the traveling montage song, "And I'll bet the ladies love a man in armor." um, Mulan absolutely kicks all kinds of ass. And it's a shame that both Hunchback and Mulan were followed up by terrible, terrible fucking direct-to-video sequels. Hunchback 2, in particular, I'll agree with Jackie Boy, is one of the worst movies that Disney has ever produced in its entire history. Like, fucking A. Hunchback 2 is just terrible. As is Mulan 2 as well. That's just a god awful movie. Oh, by the way, I would also throw Brother Bear on my list of favorite Disney movies too. That movie's pretty underrated in my opinion. But oh, and also there's Eddie Murphy as Mushu the Dragon. I live. um, I don't know who I prefer, Eddie Murphy as Donkey or Mushu. Both are really funny. Hey, dragon. Dragon, not lizard. I don't do that tongue thing. Now that's what you call an Oriental barbecue. Um, I need to watch Mulan again. Fuck. Yeah, Mulan's a kick-ass movie, but okay, the final one, Hercules. This is my number one. Like I've always said, when it comes to Disney, it has to be this three. I cannot choose. But if I had to choose just one, my favorite would be Hercules. Make a Man of You, that's what it is. Yeah, that's a great song. But yeah, Hercules is the top of the top of the top. Oh God. Hercules and I go way, way back. Even my dad likes this movie. partially because I brainwashed him into watching it and liking it, because I would watch this movie constantly as a young one, living with my dad and my brother's mom, Mary. I loved Hercules. I would watch it over and over and over again. Um, and to this day, whenever I watch Hercules, I have to watch the whole thing. I can never like watch a scene or two and then move on. I always get sucked in. Hercules is a very, very special film to myself. Um, if they ever make a live action Hercules movie, a live action Disney Hercules, they better get Danny DeVito to play Phil in live action form. Fucking A, I'm sure he'd still be really funny. And that's one thing about Hercules is it is really funny. Danny DeVito is hilarious as Phil, and James Woods is awesome as Hades. Hey, two thumbs, way, way up in there for you. Um, Gosh, so much of James Woods' dialogue in this movie is just so hilarious and so quotable. Um, how sentimental. Man, I'm standing over here. I'm just so choked up. It's like I got a hunk of moussaka caught in my throat. Ah! Is this an audience or a mosaic? Hey, how you doing? Looking good. Nice dress. So, Hades, you finally made it. How are things in the underworld? Well, they're just fine. A little dark, a little gloomy. It's always, hey, full of dead people. So what are you going to do? Oh, and there's a little sunspot. Little schmutzy. And here is a sucker for the sucker. Ooh, powerful little tyke. Oh, Hades, don't be such a stiff. Join the celebration. Love to, babe. But unlike you guys lounging about up here, I regrettably have a full-time gig, which you, by the way, so gracious gave to me. So, Zeus can't. Love to, but can't. You ought to slow down. You'll work yourself to death. Ha! Work yourself to death. If only. If only. Yeah, gotta love James Woods as Hades. One of my favorite Disney villains, like almost tied with Claude Frollo. That's kind of debatable because I also do think that, Danny DeVito as Phil is also really funny and he's pretty impactful. Um, I had a teacher when I was in high school who absolutely hated this movie because of how unfaithful it is to the original Greek Hercules myth. And yes, technically speaking, Hercules is not accurate whatsoever, almost whatsoever. There is a couple nods here and there, like Hercules fights the Hydra, and Hercules is technically the son of Zeus and Hera. Um, And no, that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it as far as like actual elements from the Greek myth that the film adapts. But outside of that, this movie is not accurate to the Greek myth at all. But I also like to counter, well, Hercules is arguably the darkest of all the Greek myths. It literally begins with Hercules killing his family because his bitch of a stepmother just compelled him to do so because she was pissed off and bitter and jealous. So it's kind of hard to adapt that into a Disney kids film, wouldn't you say? But, looking past how inaccurate this is compared to the original myth, Hercules is still a absolutely fantastic movie. It's got some of the best animation from any Disney film, a really good voice cast. Hades is one of the best villains. It's got fun action scenes. It's very colorful and flashy. It's got amazing songs and amazing music. Hercules just has it all. And as I've stated, when it comes to animation, Hercules for me is the top of the top of the top. It's the number one example that I will always think of when it comes to animated movies. Like animated Disney movies, Hercules. Animated movies from your childhood, Hercules. Favorite animated movie, Hercules. It's just what I like. Love it. So that'll about do it for this video. Jesus fucking Christ. I didn't think it'd be this long. Hopefully this will hold you guys over for a little while. I don't know if I'll be doing a video next week, but definitely after next week is when I do plan to return to a somewhat regular schedule for videos. So look forward to that. Thank you to all those who've stopped by and said hello during my over 2-hour long video of talking about animated movies. This is a good return to form. Again, pardon the chinks in the armor. It has been a little while since I've done a video, so hopefully I can get back in the groove of things pretty soon. Post your comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. And as always, go out, watch your favorite animated movies, and enjoy life. And I will see you guys in the next video.